So here there's more info. So President Carter always liked tennis because he had a tennis court here. He said his father was an excellent player. He had a wicked slice ball which barely bounded at all on the relatively soft dirt court. This is nice. So they had, whew, that's loud. So this was their family tennis court. Nice to have that right next to the house. One more look at that train. It's still an active train line, people getting off. So I'm inside the Carter store. So they sold things here on their farm, and I'm going to press the button. Get the info.
We had a store, what we call a commissary on the farm, which was quite common in rural communities because they provided basic necessities that had to be bought by the workers and by our family as well. What happened usually was that the purchases were on credit, and payment for the different items were made on payday, or sometimes even at the end of the season when the crops were harvested. The stores were convenient for three reasons. One, they were close by, and most of the transportation was on foot. Secondly, the landowner, the larger ones, owned the store in order to make a profit on items sold. And third, the people who lived on the farm or nearby quite often had no credit rating in time, whereas the landowners that owned the store would know them, and if they wanted to buy a pair of shoes or a shirt or some tobacco, they didn't have to worry about credit because they had credit. Since the landowner knew them well, and since the landowner knew that when he paid them for their work, he could collect the bill. This store was not kept open all the time, but it was open all day Saturday because that was the day for major purchases. That was the day when the workers were paid and when they paid off what they owed. The rest of the week, the store was closed except when somebody wanted to make any kind of purchase. Both we and they were out of the field during meal times. So almost every time I ever sat down at a meal, someone knocked on the back door and wanted to make a purchase from the store. My daddy would throw the keys across the table to me. I would get up and miss part of the meal, walk out to the store, unlock it, sell 5 cents worth of chewing tobacco or a bottle of castor oil or 2 pounds of sugar, make a ticket, showing that the person had bought something on credit, lock the store back up, then go back to our meal. I hardly ever remember going through an entire meal without having to be interrupted to go to the store and open it to make a sale.
So that's the Carter store. I had no idea that they sold things as well. I love the narration in there where Jimmy Carter said he always had to get up from a meal and to go make a sale in their store. That's such a nice memory for him. And I'm walking around the grounds. Looks like this is where they had their veggies. So, lots of crops here. His family was very industrious. I guess that's the water tower. All right, I'm at the windmill, and they purchased this from a catalog for $100 in 1935. So they didn't have to pump water by hand after they got this windmill. The power drew the water from the well. Well, that's a nice photo. That's Lillian Carter with Jimmy and his sister Ruth. Oh. So after 1935, they didn't have to pump water because they had power from the windmill. So interesting. All right, so this garden here was Earl Carter's garden, and then his farm supervisor was a man named Jack Clark, and so he was the one who did the planting and upkeep, and the crops were shared. So great how they have everything the way it used to be here. It looks like even the fencing is old. Got your scarecrow there. This is the blacksmith shop on the Jimmy Carter farm. And I love this quote here. He says, "It was a small building with a dirt floor. Our horses and mules were shod there." I don't know what that means, I guess. And maybe put their hooves on, I don't know. And our plow points sharpened. A few of us did this work routinely, but Daddy handled the more difficult jobs. So this is where Jimmy Carter's, and it's dark in here, this is where Jimmy Carter's father would work, sharpening tools and shodding. I think that means putting hooves on the horses, I don't know. But shodding the horses and the mules. And it still has the same dirt floor. This whole place is a time capsule. This is the milking barn where they would milk the cows. And I'm sure it looks exactly like it was. And it says here between 8 and 12 cows were milked here every day depending on the season. This was Jack Clark's job. So he was the supervisor. But Jimmy helped after school and in the afternoons. None of the milk was ever wasted. Oh, that's great. It says this building has been reconstructed, so it's not the original building, but it looks like it could be. So right next to the milking barn is what they call the harness shed. I think this is where they would keep their wagons. And this is an original structure. It says that this is where they would keep 1 or 2 farm wagons, sometimes a buggy, for about 20 mules and horses were kept. Well before daybreak, the draft animals were harnessed to the wagons, plows, and other implements to be ready to work the field. So they worked the field with the horses and the mules, and this is where they kept the harnesses. I love it when there's an original structure. Yeah, that's a nice picture of Jimmy Carter in 1970. It says, "Notice the tractor. During the span of one lifetime, machines had taken the place of mules. The nearby pump house and buggy shed also stored tools, harness, and equipment." So this is him right here in 1970. So now I'm out in a field, and they've got a lot of old farm equipment here. And it says here, as information about cash crop, this field is a small part of several hundred acres that earned a living for the Carters and the other families who lived here. Like his neighbors throughout the Southwest, Earl Carter mixed his plantings of cotton, corn, watermelon, hoping for a good price when it came to haul the harvest to the railhead or cotton gin. Sugar was grown here and then boiled for syrup. Oh, Mr. Earl sold his plains-made syrup in local grocery stores. And that's a picture from the 1930s, harvesting cotton. I love this quote from Jimmy Carter. "It was a job for boys and not men, and we despised this task. After a few hours in the field, our trousers, legs, and bare feet would be saturated with a syrupy mess." He's got so many great memories from here. What a great place to grow up. It's like a young boy's paradise. So now I'm in what they call the corn shelter, where they would remove dry kernels of corn from the corn cob. And I think we're going to get Jimmy's voice here.
Nearly every workday started and ended at the barn. Since we didn't have any tractors or other mechanized equipment, the mules and horses provided all the power necessary for plowing and cultivating and harvesting the crops. Daddy owned about 25 to 30 mules and horses at any one time, a few of which were leased out to tenant farmers who didn't have their own animals. Every morning, Jack Clark, who tended the barn lot, ensured that the mules and horses were fed, and he was the one that assigned the draft animals to the plowman, sometimes including me, before we went out to work in the fields. Although the average observer might think the animals looked the same, all of us knew every one of them by name, age, and temperament. One of my highest ambitions as a little boy was someday to plow a mule. My first real lesson in plowing on my own was in our garden behind Emma, the most well-tempered mule. I don't believe I've ever had a more proud or satisfying moment in my whole life, not just on the farm, than I did the first time I plowed. And I don't even resent the feeling that Emma was the boss of our operation.
I love that, where he says Emma was the boss of their operation, Emma the mule. Jimmy Carter had I think he has a love for books and also a love for animals, which he also got here growing up, his love for animals. And there's a couple animals right there. Cute.